The Friends reunion trailer came out. Everyone's got a ton of plastic surgery. A few of them look like they're dead. Joey definitely got fat. I grew up watching Friends. I'm a big fan of the show. I was a little bit, didn't like the idea of this thing happening. They've been talking about doing that for a while, but like these reunion things, I feel like they kind of ruin these shows whenever they do that. But then the trailer came out, and the trailer is kind of everyone just sitting around doing whatever. So it'll probably be like, I feel like it'll be a fun hour to kind of, waste away. I feel like it makes sense to not have an actual story happen. That would be the worst. I do hope they mention the show Joey, though, because that thing was disastrous. And that would be very funny if they mentioned that. Also, okay, last Friday, Love, Death, and Robots came out. I loved the first season of Love, Death, and Robots. A lot of fun, produced by David Fincher. I forget the name of the director and creator of the show. It was the guy who directed the first Deadpool. And it's got that very violent, gritty, irreverent sensibility. The first season was a lot of fun. A lot of very different kinds. Almost every, I think it was about 10 episodes. Every episode was a very different, distinct style of animation. And that's kind of that was the most fun thing about the first season. You see tons of different types of animation and very broad genres because of that. So there was like a little bit of science fiction, a little bit of romance, thriller, comedy, science fiction. Like it's very wide variety and a lot of fun. The newest season is pretty much, there's CGI animation, very realistic CGI animation, and then there's a little bit of cartoon type animation. There's really only two kinds of animation in this newest one, and the genres are not very wide variety. They took their time with the second season, but the ideas are nowhere near as exciting as the first season. Wish they would have taken more time. Like the animation's awesome. Like it's also weird for a show that like puts animation forward that they make everything look so realistic, because at some point it just feels like might as well just film this stuff. And the genres are not that wide in range, so it's much more forgettable. But hey, you know what? Some of the stuff is pretty cool. Okay. The big news of the day. The big news of the day is that Netflix and Disney Plus now have new competition. AT&T, if you remember, 3 years ago, AT&T spent $85 billion to get Warner Brothers. So they got their entire library of content, and pretty much all we saw from that was HBO Go turn into HBO Max, and then a few other companies kind of fell away. RIP Filmstruck. But now they've announced that what they're going to do is they're going to combine the Warner Brothers umbrella, which actually, okay, so this includes things like HBO Max, TNT, TBS, CNN. They're going to be combining this with all of Discovery's content. Now, I'm not as familiar with Discovery's portfolio, but it's big. All of those home renovation shows, all of those wedding dress shows, all of those, what is the one wherever they get 90 Day Fiance, those types of shows. I think TLC, I think they have TLC, but it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. They're valuing this combination to be a total of worth $150 billion. Bizarre, very bizarre. So pretty much what to take away from this. AT&T is wanting, we don't even know what this company is going to be called. AT&T is creating, at some point we'll hear about it, a new company, and it's going to be Warner Brothers. It's going to be news. It's going to be those comedy TV networks. So this is just more progression in the streaming wars that are constantly going. I mean, it's almost annoying to keep up with everything that's going on, because you always have new apps. There's like Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Hulu Live TV, Netflix, Apple TV Plus, HBO. You got all this stuff. I feel like we're just slowly moving towards wrapping all of this into like maybe 3 different bundles, and then you get everything. And this is all just nearing closer and closer to cable TV just dying away. I feel like that'll be a very good day. And I think HBO even announced they're about to get an ad section of what they're doing. So, I mean, this stuff is pretty, it's pretty exciting. It's a lot of money. We're talking a lot of money here. So, I mean, the biggest takeaway about, if you don't care about the merger, you should, because in a few months, maybe a year, you're going to hear a news story about a brand new streaming service, and it's going to include a shit ton of stuff. And that is, I think, going to be just continuing how we go. Oh, even Amazon. And in fact, Amazon, the big news this week, is acquiring all of MGM. Okay, like the big headline that was in this is that they're going to try and buy James Bond. The entire acquisition of them buying MGM is going to be $9 billion. And yeah, the big ticket item for that is James Bond. If James Bond lives at Amazon, then that solidifies Amazon as a movie studio even more than they were before. Like that might even put them above Netflix at that point. But okay, here's a list of the other types of movies that if this goes through, Amazon becomes the owner of Hamlet, The Apartment, West Side Story, In the Heat of the Night, Midnight Cowboy, Rocky, Annie Hall, Platoon, Rain Man, Dances with Wolves, and The Silence of the Lambs, just to name a few. If this $9 billion transaction goes through and Amazon wins MGM's library, then they own so many classics. Amazon's reach will be gigantic. They're already spending what, 500 million, close to a little under 500 million just for the first season of Lord of the Rings. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of content. And if Amazon pulls this off, then yeah, they're going to probably be the strongest force in streaming. And going on from there, we're still talking about, the death of network TV. There were these things called upfronts, which is pretty much studios coming forward and saying why it is that their advertisers or whatever is generating the profits, why that should remain generating, not their profits, but generating their funding. So Jimmy Kimmel, who is, with the ABC Disney stall of things, he gets up and apparently every year he does like a roast. And this year the roast felt a little bit more true than not. And I think it just is, maybe it's a joke, but it feels like it rhymes with the sound of the entire ship of cable TV sinking. Some of the things he said, being the most watched network is like being the best-selling fax machine. The NHL is back on ABC and ESPN. At long last, America's fourth favorite sport returns to its fifth favorite network. And my favorite, Amazon Prime. Over at Amazon, they're spending $465 million on one season of Lord of the Rings. $465 million for one season. Usually, to get that kind of money from Jeff Bezos, you have to divorce him. So, it was a little cheeky, pretty funny. But I mean, I'm sure it's probably a joke. I know that he was up there as a roast and he was just being a comedian, but he was funnier than he normally is. His show is pretty unfunny and he was actually spitting some truth. And I think that, yeah, looking back on that, it'll be like, yeah, you guys were about to die in a few years. Okay, then last thing, there's a lot of confusion. There have been stories about Dune. They've been saying, which I'm pretty sure is slated for a December release. I'm sorry, I think it's probably October 1. So there was a report saying that they were not going to do the same day release on HBO Max. And people were very excited about that. The director of Dune was one of the people that was saying that it was a mistake to do that type of thing with the release. And then about a week later, there was a backtrack saying that, in fact, it is going to be a same-day release. It's very confusing about what's actually going to happen. There's been several official statements, different ones going different ways. So in terms of also a big merger, I know that this isn't so much like, yeah, okay, if you like watching Dune, maybe that has an effect on you. But it seems like there's a little bit of a mess over that rollout strategy. And it's HBO's newest strategy to do this whole same-day release thing. So I think they kind of need to get their shit together. But okay. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to 5 Minute Critic. I have these weekly update live streams every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And please do not forget to subscribe to 5 Minute Critic for updates on reviews and movie news.